The bar was loud with laughter, clinking glasses, and the kind of confidence that only came after 3 rounds too many. But in the far corner, beneath the dim light, sat a woman who didn't quite fit the noise. She was quiet, calm, and had the steady posture of someone who'd spent a lifetime learning control. Her short brown hair framed a face that looked more like it belonged behind the controls of something powerful than behind a glass of soda water. Her name was Emily Kane. And no one in that small-town bar had any idea who she really was, until that night. A group of off-duty workers from the nearby construction site swaggered in, full of noise and bluster. Among them was Troy, the kind of man who mistook volume for authority and teasing for charm. He'd been drinking since sundown and was looking for someone new to target. That's when he spotted Emily, sitting alone, her eyes fixed on a small notebook beside her glass. "Hey, sweetheart," Troy said, sauntering over, voice slurred but confident. "You waiting for someone, or you just like drinking alone on a Friday?" Emily looked up briefly, polite but distant. "Just enjoying the quiet," she said softly. "Quiet, huh?" Troy chuckled, taking the seat across from her without asking. "You look like one of those serious types. What do you do? School teacher? Librarian?" Emily's lips curved into a faint smile. "Something like that." Troy grinned wider, sensing what he thought was shyness. "Well, I used to be in the reserves, you know. Helicopter mechanic. We had call signs and everything. I bet you never heard of that kind of stuff." She took a slow sip of her drink, her eyes calm. "Oh, I've heard of it." "Oh yeah?" He leaned closer. "So what's your call sign then, sweetheart?" The bar had grown a little quieter, curiosity flickering among a few regulars nearby. Emily hesitated for a brief moment, not out of fear, but calculation. Then, with a tone so composed it sent a ripple through the air, she said, "Viper 1." For a heartbeat, no one spoke. Troy blinked, the smirk falling from his face as his drink froze halfway to his mouth. The name hung in the air like thunder. He had heard that name before everyone in uniform had. 3 years ago, Viper 1 had been all over military channels, the combat pilot who pulled off an impossible rescue in the middle of enemy fire. A classified mission turned miracle, where an entire squad trapped behind enemy lines was saved by one pilot who refused to leave them behind. The story had become legend. And the name Viper 1 had become synonymous with courage. The realization hit Troy like ice water. You're that Viper 1, he stammered. Emily didn't answer. She just tilted her head, expression calm, though her eyes held a depth that made him look away. "I was a pilot," she said simply. "Now I'm just Emily." The bartender, an old Navy vet himself, stopped wiping glasses. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "didn't you fly that rescue in Helmand?" Emily gave a faint nod. The room fell silent. Troy swallowed hard, suddenly aware of how small his words were. The cockiness drained out of him. He fumbled his drink, spilling some onto the table as he tried to stand. I didn't mean anything by it," he mumbled. "Didn't know." Emily's expression softened. "You don't have to explain," she said. "Just, maybe think before you judge someone next time." Her words weren't sharp, they were heavy, filled with the weight of experience. The kind that didn't need to shout to be heard. The silence in the bar stretched for a while. Then, slowly, conversations began to resume, quieter this time. The bartender brought over a fresh glass for Emily. On the house, Troy sat back down with his friends, quieter than anyone had ever seen him. For once, he didn't have a smart remark. "And Emily?" She went back to her notebook, writing down something that looked like poetry. Her hands trembled slightly, not from anger, but from memories. "The kind that never quite left you." When she finally stood to leave, the bartender called out, "Thank you, ma'am, for your service." She smiled faintly. "Just doing my job." As she stepped out into the cool night air, she looked up at the stars, the same ones she used to navigate by, back when her world was a sky full of danger and impossible odds. She missed it sometimes, the cockpit, the roar of the engines, the silence between heartbeats before making a choice that could change everything. But tonight reminded her of something else, that even on the ground, courage takes many forms. Sometimes it's flying into enemy fire, sometimes it's walking into a bar alone, knowing who you are and not needing to prove it to anyone. Weeks later, Troy would quietly volunteer at a local veterans center. No one knew what made him change. He never bragged about it, never told anyone about the night he met Viper 1. But every time he saw a quiet person sitting alone, he made sure they were treated with respect, because sometimes, the quietest people in the room have lived the loudest lives.